haven't. That's how I see it. So, but unfortunately, you know how Apple is. It'll get so old that it's not going to be able to do any updates anymore. Yeah, I know. They get to make more money off of us. That's just all it is, but it's okay. So anyway, there's this new app. I don't know if you guys have seen it or heard of it. It's called Enigma. Enigma. So Enigma, all right? So you can actually report a UFO on there. It's very interactive. It shows the world map. It'll zoom in. It'll show all the UFO that people have witnessed on the map. It'll even show their pictures of what they caught in the sky. I mean, it looks like Google Earth, man. That's what it looks like. And it works really nicely. It's got, I think, a camera filter on there as well, you know, to catch some of these UFOs, and it'll actually post whatever you reported on that site. Excellent. I wish we had that for ASTB, but unfortunately, we don't have any computer programmers or things like that, you know, with Alien Strand Disclosure Project. Maybe someday we will. We're still out there pushing out ufology with all of our people out there that help along, you know, with like Ryan Keaton, and we have Chris Hamill, Terry Lynch, everybody that's involved with Alien Strand Disclosure Project, you know, Marisol, you know, everybody there. You just go to Alien Strand Disclosure Project, you'll find all of our stuff there. It's with all my links. Check it out there. All right. So, and it's a very difficult thing to explain to people about UFOs and ufology. And that app, like I just talked about, it's great. Go check it out, download it. They're not paying me for it. I just loved it, and I figured that everybody could use it. I don't know if it's out for Android. I know it's out for Apple. Check it out. Anyway, so there is a lot of I don't know if you caught our last podcast with Mr. Terry Lynch. We showed a lot of videos, man, of UFOs, like extremely large ones, like over a mountaintop, right? And it was so huge that it almost took the whole space of the mountaintop. And I checked it if it was CGI or anything like that, and I could not find any discrepancies in that video or that image, right? Of that was playing. I broke it down to analysis, and it gave us more of a detail that there was an electronic magnetic field and disturbances in the inside of that craft. Okay. So these things are real, and they are in the skies above our heads. And a lot of times we just don't look up, right? We're always focusing on our phones, looking down, looking at everything else around us, or when we're driving. I get it. You don't have to be looking up at the sky because you're driving. Okay. Especially the truck drivers out there, keep your eyes on the wheel. Look forward. If you see something strange, pull over where it's safe to do so, and get us a nice video or photo of whatever you're capturing out there. Anything. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people do not look up, right? And it's a strange thing too, where when you actually do look up and you catch something up in the sky, it throws you into a loop, right? Like a different kind of thing. You're like, whoa, what is that, right? That's the first thing that we come across. And our instincts that tells us, what am I looking at? And then our brains try to compute or wrap the psychological effect of what's happening when you're looking at this thing, right? Or whatever it is. And I have a friend, of course, he's on the middle part too, Ryan Keaton. He's capturing these things every day in San Antonio, right? In the outskirts of San Antonio. And he has a UFO 210 channel on Facebook. Go check that out. Really go check it out. He's got a lot of live stuff that's happening. He films everything live as it's happening. And you're seeing this as it's happening. And they're not airplanes. Believe me, I've been there. I've seen it. We filmed it. It's on the middle part too. Everything that you see from him is true and to the point. And it's there. You can't explain it, right? And that is the hard thing to do without people thinking you're not mentally there, right? We'll put it to you that way. And how do you explain these things to people? Really, reality, you know, I don't know. When you see something like that, you know, mainly people will say, hey, did you see that thing up in the sky last night or whatever? You know, a lot of people just are staying indoors, especially down here in South Texas. It is hot. It's blistering hot. And most people do not get out until 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock, when they start taking their dogs for a walk or going outside. By then, the sun is already going most of the way down, and you get to see a nice skyline sometimes, right? And that's basically the best time. You can catch UFOs during the day, during the night. Now it doesn't matter. Is it me, or do these UFOs are starting to make themselves more known during the day, right? And we had a lot of people commenting on the last podcast that we did that these things just don't care anymore. They're not hiding anymore, right? And I don't know if you go to my personal Facebook page, but if you do, I posted something this morning that there's changes that are coming, right? And we've been having this feeling with all the people in the ufology world, right? People have been contacting me every day. I feel something's changing, right? Something majorly is changing. And when this happens to people, it's like we're all connected to the same frequency, right? And not everybody feels it because, a lot of people go throughout their day doing things and they just don't think too far deep into this, right? You have to have an open mind, right? Really strong open mind. Really, the people that I'm talking about are the people that have made contact, right? Most of the people. Of course, everybody that I have talked to and everybody that's on our Facebook representatives as far as ASDP, everybody has had an experience as far as UFO or extraterrestrial experience, right? That is a given. You cannot take that away from anyone once it happens, right? And then how do you tell the world? You have to do it with these groups, because with anybody else, they're just going to laugh at you, right? And to see something and witness something is something that it is extraordinary, and it really mystifies your mind in a sense to where like, wow. But usually when you see something like this, it's the connection. You make a connection with this craft of some sort. There is a frequency connection, like I've talked about this before in my past podcasts, even on the live ones, that the person that is making connection with this extraterrestrial craft is actually connected. Let's just say like a wire. You know how like those, back in the old days, we had the Dixie cups and you had the fishing line you put in between and you could talk to each other from a long distance. The connection was there, right? You could hear it was coming through the string, right? So basically, this is an invisible line coming from the craft to you. Mental frequency connection, right? That happens during an extraterrestrial encounter. Could be with the actual extraterrestrial itself or just the craft. And once you make connection, you've made connection for the rest of your life, right? I've made connection. And this is why I understand this very, very well and explain it to people to where they're able to understand what they're seeing, right? In layman's terms, not just talking in these large words that I really don't do. I don't do that. I speak like I speak to anyone every day, right? And because it's a lot of people don't understand science. They don't understand the frequency connections. They don't understand psychology. They don't understand anything like that. They just live a normal, regular life, family life, blue collar. Most people wake up, go to work, come home, go to sleep. Bam, it's done, right? Let's do it again, Monday through Friday, right? And when you witness something like this and you actually make the connection, how do you disconnect at times too, right? Because sometimes it gets so unbearable you have to disconnect to where you're not constantly looking at UFOs or extraterrestrial videos every day, because it will consume you in that sense, because you want the better understanding of everything that you're seeing up in the sky or on the ground, right? I have a few friends that have actually recorded an actual extraterrestrial on the ground. and they send me pictures. We share these all the time, right? You don't see them in the general public because, you have to be part of these special groups in order to see it, because when we throw it out there in the general public, we tend to get laughed at, in a sense, to where people are just, people laugh because they're scared. Really, in reality, that's a lot of times people do that. So how do you explain these things, right, to people without being laughed at? Well, it's through recording everything. And this is why I brought up the application of Enigma, right? Because you can actually record an extraterrestrial that you're witnessing at that moment. Even if you're taking a picture, video, things like that, you can actually record it there. And it's there, all right, for everyone to see, not just you, right? So the explanation of getting it done is how do you do it? How do you do it, right? And these apps are great, man. Great to use in that sense. Because you can actually share it with the world, like I said earlier. People can actually see this and say, wow, this guy is, or this person is, witnessing something that's never been seen before. Which comes to the story of, this 1975 thing, right? Because back then we didn't have these apps and all that good stuff to try to record all the information. So all they could do is draw the pictures most of the time, because their cell phones weren't there yet, right? So they had to do all that. And when you record it, it should be there. Because back then we had the books. We had to go to look at encyclopedias, or they would record everything and then put it into a book, right? And this is how we knew that things were happening, around us every day. It was little communication, but it was there, right? The communication was there. You just had to search for it a little bit harder, right? And that's the way it was. And there's just no other way around it. Until somebody actually witnesses and sees these things, then there we are, right? There we are. Then we get a good story. So, and I'm going to give you this story of exactly what happened to these people in San Antonio in 1975. So on May 3rd, 1975 in San Antonio, Texas, about 9:15 p.m., Alois Aloinik, who is 48 years old, was driving west on Mogford Road in San Antonio, Texas, when a strange winged craft rises up above the grove of trees. He says the object approached him quickly, right? You can see two occupants inside this clear dome on top. Then the object hovers, vanishes instantly, he says. He had no idea where it went or took off, but it was in a fast speed. And I'm going to give you the detailed story of exactly what happened. So said he was driving to a nearby store when he noticed a strange amber-colored object rise rapidly above the grove of trees about 900 yards into a pasture adjoining the road. This object then approached Olnek's vehicle at a terrific rate of speed, losing altitude as it closed in on the pickup. It says, during the rapid approach, the primary light on the front of the vehicle changed from amber to bright cherry red, becoming most intense during the close encounter. He said, when the craft got directly over the top of my truck, my lights went completely out and my engine was dead. Wow. And then he says, I was trying to get up and get out of the pickup. He says, at first I thought it was a chopper, like a helicopter on top of me. When they hovered over my head. He said, then I saw a reddish light making details, and then he says he can see the occupants inside. He said the features of this dome or of this underneath this object it was quite plain looking. He said the occupants, they appeared to be just interested in me as I was in them. So one of the occupants, the furthest from me, appeared to be the pilot, and he had his hands on what looked like controls. He was looking up and away from me. He says the other occupant looked directly at me. A side view on the right at my windshield and appeared to be observing me. He said, I got a good look at them both. He says they weren't human. They weren't human beings like you see here. He says they could have been big men, probably about not over 5 feet tall. To me, they looked sort of like it had like a shark skin color. Kind of grayish, he says. Talking about their skin. He said he also noted that the skin was light and firm without wrinkles. The two occupants had a very wiry and firm build. He said he saw them from the bottom of the craft. He said, I heard no engine noise. Only a shriek of wind. There was terrible thrusts that buffered my pickup when it vanished almost instantly. He said it looked like just like turning off a light bulb. That's how fast it vanished. So after this thing vanished in front of me, after he got a really good look, so think about this just for a second. This craft hovered directly over his pickup truck. He could see the occupants inside like a glass bubble underneath, right? This is how he's explaining what these extraterrestrials look like inside of this craft. There was two of them, he says. And after he witnessed this whole thing happened within a split 5 to 10 second thing. So you imagine like almost like the movies. You remember how the movies, when you see something going by and then you see it and it stops in slow motion in front of as they're looking at it, and then in the film you're seeing what they're seeing in slow motion, and then it just takes off, right? So this is exactly what he saw. Put it to just vision it in that sense. There was after effects after this craft took off over him, he says. He says there was a very strong, severe odor like burning copper or electrical wiring. He says as this craft hovered over the truck. Now, This could be almost like sulfur. Almost like sulfur smelling, because it has a similar smell to it when copper or wiring burns. Not quite the same, but like a little bit of a rotten egg smell. It's sulfur, and this is what a lot of people do witness during a UFO encounter. Up close. I'm talking directly up close. He states that the odor persisted in his truck for a long period after the incident. So the smell stayed within the truck. He says, I also suffered eye strain, possible slight damage from the intense red light of the craft. Says a month later, the witnesses who worked on the outside of the sheet metal job was still wearing a dark glasses project with his eyes to prevent headaches. So, in other words, it's just trying to tell you that he works as a welder or something like that, and he still, even with the dark goggles on, he was still getting headaches from the exposure to this craft, whatever it was, right? And this is what a lot of people go through. After being up close proximity to a lot of these crafts, right? They have like a radiation sickness of exposure. Even though it was a small burst, the intense radiation around this electronic magnetic field can still affect people internally, right? Almost like, when you get an x-ray and they put that metal vest on you because they don't want those rays to penetrate too far because it'll damage, right? This is exactly what happens during an extraterrestrial encounter at close proximity, right? This is what happens, right? But he says, Olenek says, he didn't have any other long-lasting effects from the encounter. But he says, I feel like they got a good look at me and maybe got a picture or something, and then turned their lights off and vanished. And I do have pictures of this, which I will share on this podcast after it's over today. If you go to the Facebook page on Alien Strand Podcast, you'll find the pictures there of what he drew. So this was recorded as an encounter and having some sort of physical effects from it. It's almost like I've explained before on Alien Strand Podcast, that a lot of times these crafts are on a low propulsion mode, right? In other words, they have the gas throttled back just a little bit. They're not stepping on the gas yet. So the radiation is not as intense. But what probably got him was, when they did step on the gas and took off, was that burst that hit him and got him sick with the headaches, the brightness of the lights, in which he probably got a little bit of radiation poisoning from it. This was in 1975. And then how do you explain that on your way home, right? How do you explain that when you get home? I mean, there's a book that I was reading that this gentleman who got abducted several times on the way to drop off squirrels that he was catching because they were ruining his garden, because he experienced lost time and he knew something had happened to him. But every time he got home from that encounter, he didn't say anything to the family, right? Why? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to come home and your significant other's going to say, how was your day today? How was work? And you're going to say, well, I think I got abducted by an alien or an extraterrestrial craft. What do you think they're going to look at you and say? Yeah, that doesn't happen, right? That is something that people keep to themselves and slowly talk about it. But then once they do talk about it and explain exactly what happened, then you start noticing that other people do have these same exact encounters, the exact same way, right? And these are the people that you need to associate yourself with, because you have something in common. The connection, extraterrestrial connection, that you witnessed and encountered and endured. And some endure the abduction that comes with a lot of pain, with instrumentation. Some have implants that didn't know that they had. This is why you can move from state to state or country to country, and these things are going to follow right along. Once they got you, they got you. And this is how it is. This is the truth and the reality of the extraterrestrial, right? And it's more like what I'm explaining here is more of a forewarning. It's not it's not glorifying these things. No. It's a forewarning of what these things are. And I don't know if that gentleman is still alive today or had any more encounters. We don't know. This was just something that was reported in 1975 in San Antonio, Texas. Hello. I've never heard of this story before, ever. But it's recorded. This is why I'm bringing it out to you today. Because of that. And because of the technology that we have today to record everything and document everything. This is why I mentioned the app Enigma. Download it. That way people can know the stories that are happening to you, personal stories as well, of these encounters and up-close encounters of these extraterrestrial crafts, if they do happen to be up close to you. I'm talking feet away, within 100 feet. And I believe these are the best ways to contact people who have made contact as well, right? Through stories like this. And now with the technology that we have today, we can actually move forward in ufology, in research, and extraterrestrial research, and abduction research, right? Psychological research. The terminology in ufology changes daily. You know, first it was UFO, then it was UAP, then, things are starting to change. Nobody ever talks about the PTSD, right? The effects that happen with witnessing an extraterrestrial craft or encounter, right? Of some kind of craft or extraterrestrial itself. And what comes along afterwards. You only hear the direct story. You never hear what comes afterwards, right? And this is where the PTSD comes in. And there is no category of PTSD for this. in ufology or anywhere in the doctrine community or curriculum. We'll put it to you that way. Look up PTSD and see if there's one for you for extraterrestrials. You won't see one. Because people still think you're nuts when you talk about it. They don't want to put that in the books. We're just barely starting to scratch the surface with, because our government decides to say, hey, okay, we got something on video. We don't know what it is, but it did fly at enormous speeds. It did have different trajectories. It went from 5 feet to 50,000 feet in less than a second. We don't know what this is. Okay, they just scratched the surface with that, barely. And this is a monumental moment for ufologists out there everywhere around the world, not just here in the United States. I'm talking everywhere around the world, for them to document and put everything on paper, video, whatever you want to do it on. With Alien Strand, we do documentaries. This is how we document. It's documenting everything, right? These are the stories that are documented, right? And they're not made up. This is exactly what happens to people around the world. Yesterday and today. That will never change. What will change is the people's thinking of extraterrestrials and the reality that these things do exist. And they walk around amongst us every day. We just don't notice them. We've seen them camouflage themselves in clouds. We've seen their bodies camouflage themselves with foliage as far as forestry. We've seen them non-camouflaged around buildings, dark corners, areas where they don't want to be seen. The proof is out there, guys. You just have to go look for it. And don't look for that CGI stuff. We know what's real and what's not. So be vigilant. Keep looking out there and keep searching for the truth, because with podcasts like Alien Strand Podcast and people out there from Alien Strand Disclosure Project, representatives out there that try to help people every day and explain their stories. Sometimes you won't see it on their feeds, their personal feeds, but we do talk about this daily. Daily. Because we know these things are real. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast here on Alien Strand Podcast, San Antonio, 1975. It was my absolute pleasure to give you this information. I'm glad I was able to get this out to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's listening adventure, because that's what it was. Give us a thumbs up. Go to our YouTube page. Give us a thumbs up. We're on Rumble. We are everywhere. We're live. We do live podcasts as well. Go check us out there as well when we do live. Today's live, but only audio. No video today. You're not going to see my pretty face here today. All right, guys. Until then, I hope you guys catch us on 28, 29 platforms of audio. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, CastBox, Apple Podcasts. You can even ask Alexa. She'll play some Alien Strand Podcasts. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up. Follow us on all these major platforms. Go to where it says all my links on the description of this podcast. Click that, and you'll see everything from Alien Strand Podcast. All right? But until then, You guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
Transfer from Dockside Media, and you're listening to Alien Strand Podcast with Donald Ledesma. For the dopest paranormal documentaries this side of the Milky Way, visit Dockside.media.com for links to all our films on major streaming platforms. Till next time, keep on keeping.